we have a term here that I heard recently, and I love it. And they call it a California no. And the California no is like saying yes, but, and then maybe, and I don't know. And it's all this hemming and hawing because you don't want to make the other person feel bad. And guys, I lived my life like that. Being the nice guy, the people pleaser. I can't tell you how often I did the like, oh, you're having your kid's birthday party next Saturday. Oh yeah, I'd love to come. That'd be great. Thanks for the invitation. And then like, Thursday, Friday, I'm like, oh dude, this thing came up and I can't make it. And it's not. So what you're really doing is just delaying the no, right? Because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And one of the things that I've learned is you're going to hurt their feelings anyway. You're
Mm.
just dragging it out. So that hell yeah, it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. Have the courage to say no.
Welcome back to the Arvid and Sunny Pod Show. Today's special guest is Eric Rogell. Now, Eric is actually the creator and founder of Lion-Hearted Leadership, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that later on today. But for the time being, Eric, he's an author, he's a coach, he's a mentor, and he's also a writer. And typically, Eric deals with executives, entrepreneurs, as well as elite professionals. He's dealt with the swag of companies like NBC, Miami Herald, Infinity Cars, as well as the Discovery Channel. And truth be told, Eric has a little bit of a side history. He's actually a former filmmaker in a past life, so I'm sure that's something I'd like to ask Eric a little bit later on, and I'm sure it actually impacts what he does in his day-to-day life. But Eric, welcome to the show, and it's great to have you with us.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it's really I'm honored to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Awesome, Eric. I'd like to just quickly start on your signature program, Lion-Heartedness Leadership. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so lion-hearted leadership really revolves around being a whole leader, fully on both sides, we'll say, lion and hearted. And I find that a lot of leaders come in and they're really on one side or the other. So the lion side of us, let's just say that's the side that is driven, ambitious, courageous, visionary, adventurous, risk taking. That's what I call the lion side, right? That I don't want to say aggressive, but it's the part that drives us forward, right? That ambitious side of us. And then the heart, obviously, is things like wisdom, creativity, beauty, generosity, trust, all of those things that make life so juicy and delicious, right? If you put them together, oh, the person who has them integrated, that's lion hearted, they're really leading from the best place they can be leading from. Right. So, like I said, I find a lot may just have the lion side, and that comes off as overly aggressive, overbearing. Um, some only have the heart side, and for them, they may come off as soft. And so, it's really putting those two things together and showing leaders how to lead from both sides, coming in as a fully rounded leader, and really being able to communicate and lead from that space.
Where was it born? Like, how did you come up with this concept of both the heart as well as the leadership element? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, if you look at one of the things that I looked at was the hero's journey, Joseph
Yeah, yep,
Campbell,
yep,
hero's
yep,
journey,
yep.
right? And this is something that I call the software of our soul. It's something that like we're wired to love those kind of stories. And when you look at um, the hero's journey itself, it starts with the going into the challenge, right? Going into the unknown, going into the abyss, as he called it, and then he has a part called the gift of the goddess, coming out the other side as the hero, returning home as the hero. And Carl Jung, talked about archetypes a lot. And some of the archetypes that, and I had a mentor that I worked with when we discussed archetypes like the warrior and the lover and the king and queen and the hero. And those four archetypes I call the foundational archetypes in my work. And the warrior side of us is that one that is driven, right? It's the one that in the hero's journey drives us forward, helps us overcome these challenges, face these challenges, and it's an essential part of us. And that is our lion side. And then the lover archetype is the one that has to find that passion, that purpose. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Finds that love, that heart. And that is the lover archetype. That is the heart part of the lion heart. Putting them together, that leads you to king or the queen. And the king and queen operates their kingdom from that space of the warrior and lover, the lion heart. And then, ascending higher into the hero, and the hero is someone that does altruistically for anyone, not just their kingdom. So in looking at archetypes, looking at, the hero's journey, putting all of these things together and knowing based on Joseph Campbell's work that the myths and the legends and the stories of who we are, this really follows that arc. And so when I work with leaders, when I work with executives and entrepreneurs and high performers, it's easy to understand because it is part of who we are. We all have been on our hero's journey. We all have faced challenges. We all come out the other side transformed and a better person. And so that's kind of where all of this came from. And it was knowing that we needed that both sides of us in order to operate fully that kind of led to the Lionheart leader.
I saw you smile in a very noddingly way. So I'm curious to see what's on your mind.
No, I was first of all, I was reminded of Game of Thrones and their gods, obviously, where you had the king, the queen. You had the same archetypes. However, what I was more into was that is it fair to understand or to say that a lot of your coaching then centers around the transformation, helping people transform their natural abilities into some version of both the aggressor as well as the kind-hearted people, to dig into and find their anchoring somehow. Or am I just babbling?
No, no, you are 100% on the right track. Like, when I work with either an individual or a team, it really is about who you are as a unique and authentic lion-hearted leader. And I've done this with hundreds and hundreds of people. I run them through an exercise where you find out, what's your lion side, your warrior side, what's your heart side, your lover side. And then we integrate them into a king or queen, which is your lion-hearted leader. And I tell people, I've done this with hundreds and hundreds of people, and no two have ever been the same. Yet they're highly effective because it's who you are. It's authentic to you. So I tell people a lot of times it's like it's always been there. It's about remembering who you are. And I tell them you just have to remember who you are.
Hmm.
Have this inside us. So yeah, Arvid, what it's about is discovering who you are as a lion-hearted leader. Now, if I did this, the three of us would all have different um, types of that leader, but it would be authentic to us, so it would be effective for us because that's how we would be able to lead.
Me and Sana spoke a lot about it a couple of episodes ago, where we kind of personify true athletes, and we speak about Novak Djokovic and the Swiss guy. What was his name?
Federer.
Uh,
Federer.
Federer. Thank you. And how their personalities and how their strengths doesn't really align, and not as people nor as athletes. Yet they are both on the top of their game and probably at some point the best two tennis players the world's ever seen, together with the Spaniard. And at the end of the day, they had to play the game to their strengths, and that meant that every little part of their journey had to differ because their strengths were so different. One had the amazing short game and using both hands and stuff like that. The other one had the backhand and and its maps and how they. The point was more like every since they are different persons, their journey kind of have to be really different, and that you as I don't know as a leader or as a top performer should just accept that and identify your strength, not try to emulate someone else. Play the game to your strengths through and through.
I would agree with you 1,000%, and that's how it is in leadership as well. We're all molded by our experiences, right? We all have different battle scars,
Yeah.
the, quote unquote mistakes that we've made. And, for me, it's learning from those mistakes and it's sharing that wisdom and, being open about our battle scars and what we've been through. And I find that when you can embrace that as part of who you are, it takes your leadership to another level because now you're leading from your authentic,
Mhm.
right? Your authentic lion-hearted leader, right? Not so I like, for me, it might be more bold and courageous, might be part of mine. For Sonny, it might be, he's an adventurer and a risk taker, right? And that's kind of how he would lead. And then on the heart side, on the lover side, it might be more, wisdom and inspiration for me. And for Sonny, it might be more creativity and playfulness and those kind of things. So we are very different in who we are as people, and our life experience has shaped that. And so lion-hearted leadership helps you unlock that and see who you are as a leader, and then you can go from there. And so whenever you're, working with your team or um, working on a project, you're coming from your own authenticity and who you are, not trying to force something. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense. May I, sorry? I just have a quick follow up. Uh, in when you focus that much on the leader and their individual strengths and how they utilize them, how important is it for them to really work and get their own team right? And I mean like the personalities, the people in the team, because obviously if you bring it back to sports, people react differently to different coaches and stuff like that.
And different teammates too.
How can when you are coaching an executive like you do in the line leadership program, what kind of advice or how do you help them to see how to better their organization, or is that something? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no. I tell them all the time. Listen, when you have a team, communication is really an essential part of it. Correct. So speaking the same language, and I just did this with a team in London, which was interesting because, being an American and working almost exclusively with American in our culture, heading over to England and doing it over there was very different. I mean, it's similar, very much the same, but one of the things that they said was, we don't really talk about our successes. We don't talk about our wins. We don't, see ourselves as kings, queens. They have a king. They had a queen for 70 years, but we don't see ourselves as that. And really what happens is when I take them through the exercise and get them in, who they are as a lion-hearted king or queen, they're like, wow, I can understand this is who I am. And now that they've all done it as a team, they said to me, our communication is so much cleaner because we're all speaking the same language,
What does
right?
speak the
So
same language mean? Is it in terms of like-minded communication? Is it about understanding the next person? I'm just curious to
yeah,
unpack
it's
that a
about
bit more.
understanding the person, right? So like if I know who you are, as a king, son, just say as an example. Like we've been through this together. You understand lion-hearted means lead with your lion, support with the heart, right? So always leading with my lion. I can get into that in a second, but just for this part, when you all have done that and you understand communicating that way, and you understand the terms like, ownership and courage and honesty and wisdom and those things, and you've mentioned these to each other before, when you have open and honest communication, you can have it not from being wanting to be mean or cruel, but wanting to help that other person see if they've got a blind spot or they don't realize they've been doing something that wasn't ideal, and getting them back to, um, you know, doing their best, we'll say, striving more for excellence. And you can have these conversations with each other. And so I always say, like, when we're talked about the hero, well, in the hero, you create kings and queens around you, right? So it is about, when you're being a leader, is how do you create lion-hearted leaders in everyone on your team? If everyone on your team is a lion-hearted leader and they're all operating from that, how much better is your team gonna operate? So that's what I tell these executives. Don't hold on to this for you. You've got this. Now let's work with your team, or you work with your team, give them this, and then allow them to operate the same way.
From a
Does that make
leadership,
sense?
yeah, it does. I've got a bit of a follow-up question to that, particularly about broad scale leadership. Where do you think we're going wrong these days in leadership in companies, in SMEs, whether SMEs or corporate companies? Where is leadership going wrong these days?
You know, I would say there's a couple areas. One, in a lot of these SMEs, the founder is typically the leader, right? They make, their CEO, they're running everything, and a lot of them are very, very, very good at what they do, which is how they created this company. They may not be very, very, very good at being a leader in motivating and guiding others. And that's really what it is when you're a leader, is you're guiding other people, guiding your team, developing your team. And I think a lot of them have stayed in this leadership role when what they're really good at is whatever their product or service is, whatever they've developed. And so it's about getting um, trained in that leadership role. So I think we don't have enough training and guidance in how to be a good leader and how to be your own authentic leader. I see a lot of things like, you should do this and you should do that and you need to be this type and you need to be that. And a lot of people don't fit into that mold, right? So it's about being their own unique and authentic leader. I think that's number one. And I think in some leadership, so we have in my work what we call right order leadership. And that's why it's lion hearted and not heart lion. It's, we lead with that strength, right? That's just, if you look at every story, every myth, it starts with the challenge. It starts with the decision. It starts with, going into willingly into this thing. And that is all from the lion side, from our warrior archetype. If you look at nature, let's just say, like, give an example of a butterfly. Butterfly is very beautiful, but it starts out in its chrysalis. And it has to, in order to become the butterfly, it has to tap into that warrior side, that lion side, and break free of the chrysalis so that it can become and develop into this beautiful butterfly. Same thing with flowers. They're in the seed. That has to break free of the seed first and go. That's part of who we are. It's part of our nature. So when we lead with that lion and then support with the heart, which is, like I said earlier, makes everything so juicy and delicious in life. It's beauty, it's creativity, it's trust, it's generosity, it's wisdom, all of those things. That's when we lead what I said, right order. There is a lot of leadership that I've seen in work where they want to lead with the heart first. Now, I always tell leaders it's amazing to have a big heart. It's amazing to come from that love, from that, compassion, that empathy. But when you lead with it, it shows up as weakness. And it's just the way we react as human beings because we're used to that lion side first, right? It's in every story, every myth, it's in nature, it's in everything that we do. So I think that's an issue with some leadership also, is it starts to appear soft when
Yeah.
we lead with the heart. And I know this is an argument that I've had with a lot of leaders where they're like, no, I'm very heart centered. I want to lead with my heart. And then we work on some things where we get them to lead with the lion and they realize, well, this is way different. People view me differently. I step up and show up differently. and it really helps the team. So I think those are the two biggest issues that I see
Yeah.
is the one, leading from the heart, and the other is not getting any training at all, being a leader and trying to run your company when your real skill was creating this product or service and then getting them trained up so they can become their authentic leader.
What I like about leading from a leadership perspective first is people need to have the expectation set up from the get-go. You need to set the expectation, you need to show strength. I think people will respect strength. To have the heart-centered approach is a beautiful thing. I think everyone needs a bit of that. However, I think if you are leading with the heart, it tends to be a result of being a people pleaser as a person. I think that's a pretty natural subset. Just curious to get your thoughts on that, Eric.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like I said, I work with a lot of these leaders who have come from the heart first. And people pleaser is a great way to look at it. Mr. Nice Guy. I don't want anyone on my team to think that I'm a jerk. I want to make everybody happy. I want my whole team to always be happy, happy. I do this in a talk, and part of my Lionhearted Leadership is a talk I do on heroes and villains, right? We all want to be, we all are the hero of our own story, right? That was, I know, Arvid, you mentioned Game of Thrones, and George R. R. Martin said, we are all the hero of our own story. Now, what I add to that is, but we are also the villain of a lot of people's stories. If you're a parent, you understand what I'm talking about. You're trying to make the right decision, you're doing the right thing in raising your kids, and they see you as a bad guy. So, what I tell leaders is when you look at the villain, George R. R. Martin also had a great quote that I love. He was asked in an interview, and if you've seen Game of Thrones, this makes sense to you. He was asked, how do you write such incredible villains in your books? And he said it's very easy. The villain is simply the hero of the other side. So if you look at it in perspective and viewpoint, everyone's got different perspectives and viewpoints, especially when you're in an organization, in a company, and you're never going to make everyone happy. It's going to be rare when everyone's all on the same page and they're all doing the same thing. There's always going to be somebody somewhere who, whatever decision you make, they're not going to be happy with. So I tell leaders all the time, if you're making decisions based on whether or not you're going to make people happy or whether you're going to piss them off, if you want to avoid pissing off people, you're making the wrong decision,
Yeah.
right? Decision is that warrior side. Decision is our lion side. And you've got to decide on what's best for the company and the business and everything moving forward, and understand that you're always going to be seen as the villain in someone's story. And you have to be okay with that, because now you can make decisions based on what's best rather than based on who's going to be, how many are going to be happy, and if you're going to piss anybody off and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So be okay with being a villain, because really you being that villain in that instance is really you being the hero of that other perspective, the other side. So that's kind of where I get with that.
Yeah, totally.
I think we can bring that into a little classical research as well, because you're touching upon Carl Jung, for example, the two sides of the personality. The one side we like everyone to see, and the side we don't want people to see. Well, we have both of them, and the avoiding conflict is often coming from the side, yeah. And the other thing is obviously a little in the Anthony or Tony Robbins sphere, which also one can have mixed feelings about everyone and everything, but at the end of the day, his theories on the decision making, they are really good. The ability to this has to happen for me to succeed. This has to happen, and I have to do it, and that will have consequences, some good and some bad. But if I choose not to do this, everything we've been speaking about or talking about so far is a pipe dream. It's not a plan. It's a dream. It's a vision. So
Yeah.
I love the way that the stuff you're talking about. It
Yeah.
really resonates with a lot of things I'm reading and talking about myself.
Excellent. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's great. And again, it's because it's what, like I said earlier, it's the software of our soul. This is kind of how we're wired. And so when you can lead from that, and Decision making is part of leading, and I always say, and I don't know who said it first, but I agree with it 1,000%. Is not making a decision is a decision.
Yeah.
Right? You've decided now to be reactive instead of proactive. And I've seen this in a lot of, actually, I coached a very high level executive a few years ago. We started working together. And one of the things he said to me was, "Oh, no, I don't make decisions. I don't make decisions. I just let things happen and then I deal with whatever happens."
So
And I'm like,
he
so
fights fires. He or she fights fires,
you're
effectively.
just being reactive all day long. And that is not leadership. That is just,
Submission.
like you said, now fires all day long. But his not making decisions
You have to
is
bring
a
him in.
decision that he's just going to react to whatever happens.
You have to bring him into the hunting world. You take the shot or you don't take the shot. You take the shot, you might get some meat on the table or feed your family. You do not take the shot, you're not going to feed your family. You
That's it.
still made a choice. You took action because you brought the gun, you went up in the hill, you had the deer in sight, everything was good to go, and you chose not to pull the trigger.
Yes. I feel this too on that side of it and decision making and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
When you take that ownership and you make that decision and you decide that I'm going to live with the consequences, like you said, Arvid, you
Yeah,
have power. You have
and
all,
and that brings us neatly into the story where you started, the hero's journey and everything. Because as I said, A, it's your plan and you execute things according to your plan. B, it's someone else's plan and you're part of it.
right. You can
But
either be driving the bus or riding in the bus.
you are in the bus. Make no mistake. The bus is on its route. This is your life and it's moving. I really enjoy how you have theorized about this. It's quite I don't know if impressive is the right, but engaging,
Yeah.
and insightful. Thank you,
That's the
Thank
insightful.
word.
you.
That's
No,
the word.
I appreciate that. And that's part of what I do is just to simplify it, right? It's a simple concept. And I use lion-hearted because it's easy to remember, lion-hearted, and then you get everything from just that one word. You kind of pick up on all of this stuff.
Do you agree with Tony Robbins when he says that making choices is something you can evolve and be better at? But be conscious about it and okay, you are making choices all the time, but being conscious about it makes you do get better at it and do better choices as you move forward.
Oh, I agree, and I absolutely agree with that, and I think that, even looking at the example of starting out making choice first of all, not making a choice, which is, not making a decision, which is a decision, moving into making decisions to please the most people, moving into making decisions that are best for the company and even yourself, and then getting more and more courageous about the decisions that you make, and more of an understanding of every decision I make has to be for the greater good, has to be for me personally, whatever is best. And knowing that I have my power, I command my power when I make decisions that way, and just getting stronger and stronger and stronger at it. Um, I've seen where people make decisions now like that because they don't have to quote unquote think about it and analyze it and look at all the differences. They can feel it and know that this decision feels way more expansive than this decision, which feels very tight and contracted. So this is the way that I'm going.
I have a theory about it. Can I share it with you just to get feedback
Absolutely.
from both of you because you're a smart man? In my mind, when I was reading this and hearing about it, and reading the theories behind it, I just kind of came up with the analogy, thinking like, okay, it's like if you're not trained at making decisions, it's like coming out and visiting a new city and you don't know anything. You go to the right and you end up at the beach. You go to the left and you end up in the mountains, stuff like that. But if you are conscious on the decision you make, and let's say like me, I like the mountains and I like the woods. I prefer to go that way. But by getting better at making decisions, the more of my time I'll be spending in a fictional woods. I'll by getting better at making decisions, it will put me into a path where I'll be more comfortable and better as a person, because better decision puts me on a path to a better life, better friends, better peers, better colleagues, whatever. So it's like for an untrained person, every decision is like being in a new city, go right, end up at the beach, go left, end up in the mountains. But when you're really good at it, you'll always be in the mountains. It's more like, okay, now the decision is not whether I'm going to end up at the beach or in the mountains. More like, okay, am I going to go on the ridge, or am I going to find the lake, or am I going to find the mountaintop? But I'll like all three of them. Does it make sense to you? Do you get what I'm talking about? Just being getting good at making decisions put you in places where the decisions are more aligned with who you are all
I
the
think
times.
I think I agree, but you got to know who you are. I think first and foremost. I think I'm going to a different topic. I'm just touching on a different topic. You talk a lot about finding your purpose as well. I think your purpose is going to be aligned with making good decisions, and going back to making good decisions. I think making them from first principles is an important element of making good decisions. So, what do you know to be correct beyond any shadow of doubt, and using that as part of your decision making process, and being able to impart or put aside any emotional baggage or emotional reasons to make a different decision. You got to make it based on intellect, not necessarily hard all the time, but have that balance as well.
Yeah, we always say the mind is a horrible master, but it's a wonderful servant, right? So you can analyze and look at things, but you still have to make the decision from here based on the facts that you've got, based on your principles, based on your purpose, based on the data, whatever it is, and then make the decision from here, from the heart. So I would agree with you. And I think, Arvid, what I was getting from you and what you were saying was the more that you make decisions, the more comfortable you are with your decision. You trust yourself more. And there's that self-trust that goes along with it. And what flew in as you were saying that was fear of making mistakes holds so many people back in making decisions, not just that they're going to piss people off, that they're going to make the wrong decision and they're going to make a mistake. And I fortunately years ago worked for a company, and one of their guiding principles was fail forward fast. Make the decision, fail, realize that you failed, and then correct course and go. Learn from it, right? So in my work, we don't have wins and losses. We have wins and learns. If we make a quote unquote mistake, we learn from it and then we move forward from there. So like in your example of it about making a left and heading to the beach, or making a right and ending up in the mountains. Well, if I decide to make the left, wanting to go to the mountains, and I'm driving and I look and I go, oh crap, beach. I can turn around and head back. And now I know mountains are always to the right. And now I make those decisions faster. Does that make sense?
That's my point. Is like when you make the decisions over time, if you're conscious about them, it will lead you the right way,
Yeah.
because you are aware. Okay, this is a conscious decision. I chose this one. It didn't work. I'm gonna go the other way next time, and you learn something, and you use that wisdom. And the more you are capable of doing that, the more you'll find yourself in the place where you want to be. That was kind of the gist of it, and I was just rambling a little bit to
Yeah.
to
No, no,
figure it
no.
out.
And I agree. It brings up a story that someone told me a long time ago, and I never forgot it. And it was apparently, in the US Army, they had a general in place and they had this really complex project that they had to do. And they had, researched on it, and they had files this thick, and they had all this stuff. And every general that came up, was appointed into this position was given all of this information and all of these analytics and all of these files, and told to make a decision on whether to do the project or not, or how to do the project. And all of them kept kicking the can down the road. Like they never made a decision on it, and the project never got done. And then at one point, a new general gets appointed into this position, and they come to him and they say, well, listen, we've got to do this project, and here's all the analytics. and here are the two choices. And the general looked at everything and he goes, we're doing this one. And they were like, well, how did you make this decision? Like, the last 5 guys that were in this position just kept kicking, they never made a decision on it. And then they were just worried about making, the wrong decision. And he said, well, this might be the wrong decision, but if it is, we're going to know very quickly. And then we change course and go to this.
Yeah.
We either made the right decision or we didn't, and we're going to change back and let's get it going.
Just make a
And I love
decision.
just make the decision. You'll know if it's right or wrong and just keep going. To me, that's part of the lion, courage and decision is part of our lion side. So again, that's why we lead with it. And then we can create beautiful things from there.
Mark Manson, the guy who wrote that book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a You Know What. But one of his things he should say is if it's a hell yeah, it's a yes, and it's a very binary decision. If it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. And then you make the decision and then you keep going. You make it and just walk, keep going. There's no coming back, just make it and keep moving forward.
If that was really true, the nightclubs throughout the world will be empty. No man. I'm sorry, boys.
That's beautiful. I love that.
It wasn't called for. I'm sorry, guys. I just had to. It was so honest.
No, that's beautiful. And it's the thing that comes back from here. We're all very intuitive. We all have our own intuition. Now, like I said a few minutes ago, having the information that you need to make that decision is great. And that gets you to that hell yes or hell no. And, one of the things we have to be courageous about in making decisions is whether or not we're actually going to follow through and do it. We have a term here that I heard recently, and I love it. And they call it a California no. And the California no is like saying yes, but, and then maybe, and I don't know. And it's all this hemming and hawing because you don't want to make the other person feel bad. And guys, I lived my life like that, being the nice guy, the people pleaser. I can't tell you how often I did oh, you're having your kid's birthday party next Saturday. Oh yeah, I'd love to come. That'd be great. Thanks for the invitation. And then Thursday, Friday, I'm like, oh, dude, this thing came up and I can't make it. And it's not. So what you're really doing is just delaying the no. Because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And one of the things that I've learned is you're going to hurt their feelings anyway. You're just dragging it out. So that hell yeah, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. Have the courage to say no. Have the courage to go, dude, I'm not gonna be able to make your kid's birthday party. I'll send a nice gift, but I'm not gonna spend, 4 hours at a kid's party. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, because worst thing you do is say try. I'm going to try and get there, and that is asking for permission to fail. That's all it is.
100%. And we do it. Listen, we do it in business. We do it with everything.
I'll try.
Oh yeah, we'll take on that project. We think that's a great idea. We'll get that going.
No,
you're just going to keep pushing it down the road, and you're never going to get to it. And then it's just delayed disappointment. It's delayed, hurt feelings. Just get it, rip the Band-Aid off, get it done right away, and then you're not beholden.
Exactly.
Just think of all the energy you expend when you're like, yeah, I'll do it. And then you have to wait, a week, a month of like, how am I going to get myself out of this thing? Right? What's the excuse I'm going to come up with, right?
So if I can try to summarize a little bit about your business philosophy, you have the lion, you have the hawk, make the fucking call, make the decision. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. Turn the fuck around and do the other thing. Don't stop. Don't wait. Yeah. And if it's a yes, say yes. Don't postpone it. If it's a no, say no. Don't postpone it. I like it. I like it. I always try to bring things into the philosophy of it because there's so many philosophers that's been out there and they've been thinking about stuff for many, many, many years. They're quite smart, a lot of them as well. And to see how the things we are talking about kind of ties into it. And I like that. Yeah. So I'm going to use those.
Yeah. Like I said, I like to keep it simple. I like to keep it as simple as possible. Right. I mean, I liken it to golf. Golf is a simple game. Take a bunch of sticks, hit a ball into a hole in the least number of times. It's a very simple game. But it takes you need to work on it. Right. Yeah. And you gotta make, keep your attention on it. And and practice. It's the same thing with this. It's very simple, lion-hearted. And then be able to go, oh, keep that in mind when I'm doing anything, leading my team, when I'm, you know, in communication, when I'm giving a directive for a project, when I'm doing a project, when I'm making a decision. Very simple.
Beautiful. Eric, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Would love to have you back on. We covered too much awesome stuff today, and there's a lot more awesome stuff we want to cover off. So we'd love to
Yeah,
have you
well,
back
listen,
on again.
anytime you guys want back on, I had a blast. This was an honor, and love to come back on and talk about this some more.
Awesome. Cool. All right, Eric. Thank you very much. Yeah. And take care. We'll be in touch soon. All right. Bye
Thanks.
now. Bye. I think Arvid's, I'm sure he's there somewhere, but
Oh, he just popped off.
maybe he's popped off. We're still recording, so he'll probably come on. And yeah, but other than that, Eric, it was great to meet you. Yeah.
Too.
I think we all had some pretty good chemistry, which is great.
I think so too. It was a great, it was great flow, great conversation. Nothing was forced.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it because I do a bunch of these, and there are a lot of times where the hosts don't ask questions, don't get involved in the conversation. They have an outline of questions and they just read them.
Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, I had probably about 3 questions that are written down, but I really wanted to understand more about heartedness leadership. I really want to understand more about that.
Sure.
Yeah, and that is
Yeah, and it was great. And like I said, I'd love to come back on anytime with you guys.
awesome.
It was fun. It was great meeting Arvid. That was the first time I met him, and so I kind of love his style of like, okay, I'm going to break this down
Yeah,
now into the
yeah,
and then you're kind of with the questions and getting it moving, and
yeah,
very
yeah,
much so. I
yeah,
think it works with the two of you guys.
yeah. I guess we're very similar in certain ways, but very, very different in terms of how we operate. So we tend to complement each other quite well. I think we do. Yeah, that's what we think, at least.
Yeah,
That's why we do
yeah,
it, right?
mm, yeah. Perfect. It was great. So just let me know when you guys are going to put it up,
100%.
and if you need any links, like to send people the links in the show notes or anything, uh, let me know.
No problems
And
at all.
I'll send them over to you. And if you
Cool.
need, headshot, a photo or whatever, I
Cool.
can get you
Yeah.
that as well.
Probably for the thumbnail, that'd be good. Yeah, for the thumbnail. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. I'll
Awesome.
I'll get those over to you guys. And
Cool.
yeah, tell Arvid it was great meeting him. And
I will.
whenever you guys want to do another one, let me know.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Thank you very much. Awesome
All
to
right,
meet
you
you.
got it.
And all the
Take
best
care.
for your holiday season.
I
With
was gonna say same to you.
your
Yeah.
loved ones and your family. Yeah. Enjoy.
Same to you, man. Just enjoy. Just relax and
Yeah.
enjoy
Yeah.
the holiday.
Yeah. Kick
All
back.
right.
All right. Take
All
care.
right.
All right.
Take
Bye,
care.
mate.
All right. Bye bye.